Director Chopra, I'm disappointed that your written testimony did not mention financial literacy or education as one of your priorities. Consumer education, as one of 6 primary functions of the Bureau, is essential for consumer protection, and I serve as a co-chair of the Financial Literacy and Wealth Creation Caucus. And so I would like to urge you to make use of the public-private partnerships to enhance financial literacy. According to the Civil Penalties Fund's annual report published in November 2022, the total unallocated balance was more than $481 million. And recent reinforcement actions may have increased the fund's unallocated balance to exceed $2 billion. So how come you haven't used the fund for its intended purpose to enhance financial literacy since you took office as director of CFPB?
Well, let me just say that financial education and literacy is a real cornerstone of what we're doing. In the annual report, that's part of our testimony.
I'm glad we agree.
So on civil penalty fund,
Yeah.
The civil penalty fund has 2 purposes: victim redress and financial education funds, financial literacy programs. We actually expend resources on financial literacy through our general funds, which cannot be used for victim redress.
Sure.
But we also want to make sure that those funds expended are smart, and that they're not wasteful, that they're effective.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I also want to echo the urgency of my colleague across the aisle, Mr. Scott, to use the fund for its intended purposes. And I ask that you, rather than focusing on blog posts and press releases, I would remind you that you have other tools in your toolbox, like that fund, to prevent fraud and scams. So please, let's use more of them. Now, are you concerned about the amount of credit card debt held by Americans?
I don't tend to think about the overall amount, but it certainly has accelerated. I'm more worried about delinquency, costs, and having a competitive cost of credit.
So I would like to address that issue. In the credit card fee proposal, you cite the research that was co-authored by 2 former Bureau economists that use the Bureau's own Card Act data. That study states that when the credit card late fee decreases, it incentivizes higher usage and greater likelihood of paying late. Is that right?
I don't know the specific study you're referring to, but if you're saying that a late fee may have some impact.
Well, that's a study that is based on a peer-reviewed academic publication.
Okay, and I apologize. I don't have all the facts from that individual study cited, but of course, we think a lot about...
Despite that, the Bureau disregarded that research, and instead, you conducted your own analysis, but that analysis wasn't peer-reviewed or published in a journal. That's our understanding.
Well, we certainly look at a lot of data sources, studies on consumer credit. I know you're mentioning one. I'm happy to take questions for the record on that specific one.
Well, your credit card fee proposal, that's not going to reduce prices for consumers. Instead, the reduction in fees will lead to an increase in borrowing costs and potentially higher debt for families and individuals. So the CFPB also acknowledged in the credit card fee proposal that customers who never pay fees late, which is about 74% of all Americans with credit cards, will not benefit from the reduced fees and could face higher maintenance fees, lower rewards, or higher interest-paying accounts. So I just wanted to point that out to you, and I want to move on to the next matter. And I agree with you. The open banking has the potential of unleashing innovation and more options for consumers. But CFPB recently issued a request for information soliciting public feedback about data broker market. The request uses a definition of data broker that essentially covers every consumer-facing businesses in existence. Firms that collect, aggregate, sell, resell, license, or otherwise share consumers' personal information with other parties. So do you believe that small businesses in Southern California, like hair salons, gyms, flower shops, should be subject to Fair Credit Reporting Agency since they collect personal information from consumers?
No, I think the purpose is it's about companies that are assembling dossiers just like other background screening companies or as other tech companies and others. So we are actually soliciting input. That was not a proposed rule. We're trying to make sure we get the right type of input.
Sorry, your time has expired.